love that line, I will stand while others sit. And even though you're all sitting, we're all standing together for democracy, for you coming out tonight to hear from the slate of two candidates. You know, Lyndon Johnson, when he was president, once said, "When the burdens of the presidency get too heavy, I remind myself it could be worse. I could be a mayor." And I bring that up to underscore how important this act of citizenship is tonight, that we're here to hire for one of the most important and toughest jobs in the nation. What you're going to hear tonight is not a debate. Instead, we've engaged experts in the art of the job interview to dive deep into the character traits and qualifications for the leadership position of the $6 billion corporation that is the city of Philadelphia. And from the beginning, we've wanted to do this with you. So we've crowdsourced an actual job description with responses from, I keep getting this wrong, but I think it's 46 of 48 zip codes throughout the city from citizens. And you can check out the job description through the QR code on the card you've been given. And if you want to ask a question tonight, write it on that card and pass it to the center of your row. Charles Ellison, lead political commentator for WURD Radio and host of Reality Check and EcoWord magazine, will convey your questions to the candidate. Our next event will be Tuesday, February 21st with Helen Gim and Sherelle Parker. And before we get to tonight's candidate, former Controller Rebecca Rhynhart, a big shout out to our sponsors, Every Voice, Every Vote, a really innovative, collaborative project managed by the Lenfest Institute for Journalism is really amplifying discussions around the future of Philadelphia. They have been wonderful. And our other sponsors, Diversified Search Group, the nation's oldest woman-founded and woman-run executive search firm. And again, as you've heard me say before, founded by force of nature, Judy von Seldenik, who penned a terrific piece in The Citizen this week, wondering if, after 99 men, Philly is finally ready to have a female mayor. So you should check out Judy's piece. And our host Fitler Club here, one of our city's really crown jewels. If you're not a member and are interested in joining, somewhere around here is Erica, who is the best dressed woman in the room, usually without doubt, and she can help you facilitate any interest in joining the club. And you'll see me here a lot. I don't know if that's a sell. Fine. Nutter's still doing his stand-up act. Finally, our partners at WURD Radio, the state's only black-owned talk radio station and one of only 3 left in the country, celebrating its 20th anniversary birthday this year. WURD is broadcasting live tonight. Let's hear it for WURD. And now, just to get to our panel of questioners, to Rebecca's left, Ken Hirschman, Managing Director of the aforementioned Diversified Search Group, Sue Jacobson, President of Jacobson Strategic Communications and the former chairperson of the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce, and of course, former Mayor Michael Nutter, with whom we're producing a pretty cool podcast called How to Really Run a City. It's the mayor and former Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed having a lot of fun, but also diving deep on the mysteries and mastery of big city leadership. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts. The way this will work is each questioner will get 13 minutes of questioning before we get to your job interview questions. And now let's get this party started with Ken Hirschman.
Good evening. Before I ask several questions to Rebecca, I want to provide a little foundation for how these questions came about. that I'm going to talk to Rebecca about. Typically, when we are interviewing for a chief executive officer or another leader of a company or an organization, we would ask first leadership and management questions. And those questions typically start off from leadership style, which I'll ask Rebecca about tonight, all the way through prioritization. There are many other facets for leaders that they need to work on in today's environment, but I'm going to cover just those associated with leadership and management. And again, these are typical of those that we would ask for a CEO of a $6 billion organization like the City of Philadelphia. So, first question, Rebecca.
Okay, I'm ready. Everyone hear me okay? Yeah? Okay.
Perfectly. As our former controller, $6 billion budget for the City of Philadelphia. People of Philadelphia know you. The 25,000 people that work for the City of Philadelphia know you. Please describe your leadership style as the controller first, and then how you may have to adjust that, if you do need to adjust it, to be seen as our next mayor.
So my leadership style as city controller, it's an interesting question. I lead through being very mission driven. I ran for office in 2017 after close to a decade working for 2 different mayors because I felt I needed to run for office to make Philadelphia truly work for people. So I am very mission driven to fix our city government, to make it truly work. And I hire people that share that mission. By sheer enthusiasm, I bring people along. And I also, though, have high standards for people that work for me and report up to me. I expect people to do their job they're hired for, but also, I'm a little demanding at times. I do check in. I say, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? I expect things to be done when they're supposed to be done. But I care a lot. And I put a lot of my heart into it as I lead.
Well, those are all great traits for a leader. Nice response. So the second part of that question was, how may you have to adjust that as the mayor? And what does that look like?
Yeah, well, I'm still mission driven, and in fact, even more so. The reason I decided to run for mayor, the reason that I resigned my job as city controller to run for mayor is because I wanted to actually implement the changes that as controller I could only report on. As mayor, I can make them happen. So I'm extremely mission driven. So I expect that to continue through. I expect everything to be on a bigger scale so that I would hire the best people, have metrics. I'm big on data and metrics, accountability, and make sure that we're getting outcomes that we need to get in terms of improvement in service delivery, safety, crime. We need to make sure that our city is safe and clean and that our education system is improved. All of those things I would be mission driven, but also, I'm sort of tough. I seem really nice, but I am nice, but I'm tough. I'm tough.
Both good traits. So let's follow up on that just a little bit.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
People will say that leaders that are successful have an incredible ability to get people to see priorities and build consensus around those priorities. And while many people believe that their priority may be those that should be dealt with first, a good leader is typically able to explain why that may not be the first thing to be done. So I'm not interested yet in understanding what your priorities are. I'm interested in how you would go about building priorities. What's the act of prioritization that you would utilize to get the city of Philadelphia to rally around those most important priorities? So I don't want to know what they are.
You don't want to know what?
I want to know as a leader how you would do that.
So as a leader, to build the priorities, and I'm thinking this through while I'm answering, to build the priorities, I would listen first. So listen to stakeholders, meaning the people across all neighborhoods, meaning business leaders, meaning activists and clergy. I would listen and say, what are your priorities? What needs to be fixed in our city? What is working well in our city? I have my list of priorities, but that could shift in those conversations. So that is the way that I would go about building the priorities, and the way that I have built where my priorities are right now in my run for mayor is, of course, what I've seen. The violence, the poor educational outcomes in terms of education, but I know you said you don't want to know what they are.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Sorry. But I think it's through listening first and then conversation and dialogue. I find that most people can be convinced through a conversation of a Q&A, they can get to the same place. That makes sense.
Thank you. No, that was good. So you led me into the next question,
okay,
which you happened to mention, I think, violence in education. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what your top 3 priorities would be from your perspective? Now, I know you would have to go about building consensus for those, and but you've had a front row seat. You've been there. You've sat in the mayor's office. You know what they are. Tell us why those are the priorities. So if you were to select 2 or 3 priorities, tell us why you believe those would be the priorities.
So my top priority as mayor would be public safety. We have to address the crime. We've had 3 years in a row now with a homicide rate at or above 500. It was within the last 10 years that we had under 250 homicides. The level of violence is unacceptable. People are scared across all neighborhoods. And I'm not saying this as something that's unfixable. It is fixable. And as mayor, I would make it the top priority to make our city safe. And there are action steps I would take on that front. I don't know how much time we have. Do you want me to go to my next? Okay.
Sure.
The number 2 priority would be to fix education in our city. My daughter is in 7th grade in the public school system here in Philadelphia. We must fix education. I mean, the mayor now appoints the school board. That is a huge change from the way it was in the past. And as mayor, I would lean in and appoint a school board that shares my vision for improvement, while at the same time pushing the state for more funding. Both can be done at the same time. Education, we have 35% of 3rd graders reading at grade level right now. That's unacceptable. There's so much lost potential. We must fix that. And 3rd, I could do 4.
2 is fine.
Oh, okay. Really? Okay.
Because I do have a follow-up question. So you were sitting in the financial seat, the seat that controls the purse, that allocates the money for these priorities. So what's your opinion, based upon the seat you sat in, what was done from a financial perspective that should have been done differently to work on your biggest priority? What you just said was your biggest priority. What would you do differently? Had you known you should have done it before?
So as the city controller, I'm the auditor, the financial watchdog. And we can take, the budget of policing, for example. The police budget is about $800 million a year, the largest spend in the city's general fund budget. As city controller, I did an audit on the police department to show how we can manage policing in our city better to support the rank and file officer, but make needed change. It's not just about the dollars. And I think this gets into how we can really make change, and how, as mayor, I would lead, is that it's a combination of operations and dollars together. And at the city, often it's siloed between operations and finance. But what we need to do is take that $800 million and shift it. Establish policing based on the community needs first, not top down. We need to make sure that every officer that can work is working. That's about bringing officers back that are injured on duty that shouldn't be injured on duty. It's about making sure that the officers that can be on patrol are on patrol, right? It's all of these operational changes that will help the officers that are on patrol and help the safety of our city.
It's a great answer to a top priority that you have.
Thank you.
Very nice job. Last question. People want to know, when you put together your leadership skills and your traits and the ability to prioritize and the ability to understand how to balance a budget, how would you attract people that want to work with you?
Sheer enthusiasm. No, I think people always want to work for me, right? I'm kidding. No, seriously, I have always been able to hire a good team at the city. There are so many people out there that want to do good, that want to help our city. We have such an amazing city, our arts and culture, our sports teams, go Eagles, got the green. We have such an amazing city, but we need to make our government work. And what I've found is that there's so many people that actually do want to do good and do want to work for the city. They want to work for a change agent. And so I've been able to attract people that way.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our next questioner, Sue Jacobson.
All right, I'm going to take a deeper dive.
Okay.
Tell us what your first 100 days look like. What is success for you after 100 days?
Okay. So first 100 days. Day one, I would declare a crime emergency, open the emergency operations center, so that as mayor, I could coordinate the operating department response to gun violence. That means the police department, but it also means streets, to make sure that lighting is fixed in high crime areas. It means behavioral health, so that trauma treatment, and the city spends $1 billion a year on trauma treatment. Trauma treatment is directed to the 14 zip codes out of about 40 that have the majority of the violence. It means library expanded in those neighborhoods, rec expanded, all of that. I would do that right away. First 100 days, establish metrics for success on all of the major policy and priorities that I have coming into office. That's crime and safety, that's education, that's city services. We need to improve city services. And so I think I'm a big about data and dashboards and metrics. Set all that up and clean the city. This is something we can clean the city in 100 days. We can pick up the trash, we can get rid of the illegal dumping, we can clean our streets, and that would be a top priority to get done right away in the first 100 days.
So actually, that's another question. So in 2026, Philadelphia is going to be thrust in the global spotlight, right? We've got the World Cup, we've got the nation's 250th birthday, we've got the MLB All-Star Game, WrestleMania, which is supposedly a $200 million economic impact. Who knew?
Like you're not a fan, Sue.
I'll be there. But what are you going to do?
Wow, what an amazing year, 2026. So as mayor, I will be right up front. I will be working to make sure that our arts and entertainment are ready for this huge influx of people coming in. I will be working with regional leaders and business leaders to make sure that everyone's on the same page for this huge year in our city. I will be out there at every event, cheering for our city. It's amazing. I mean, there's going to be a lot of prep work that goes into this to make sure that Philly's ready. But when the day comes, I'll be out there celebrating and making sure everything's working properly, of course.
Which actually leads to the next question. Do you actually believe we are a world-class city? If yes, why? And if not, what are you going to do about it?
Absolutely. Philadelphia is a world-class city. Philadelphia, it's amazing. We have an amazing city. Our history, our culture, our arts, and our arts going from the small neighborhood arts and dance to the museums on the Parkway, to the ballet and the Kimmel. We have so much going for us. Our restaurants, we have so many things. Our sports teams, we have amazing traits and characteristics. We're also right in between New York and Washington, D.C. We have growing industry in biotech going on that is not celebrated as enough, I don't think. We have a great city. What we need to fix are some of the underpinnings of what government's responsible for, which is safety, crime, the streets not being clean enough, the education system not being good enough. That's what we need to fix to truly be what we can be.
You know, in one area where I think a lot of us do believe is that other cities are actually eating our lunch when it comes to attracting new business to Philadelphia. And so how would you stop that? How would you compete as our mayor?
So I think on business, we need to improve the ease of doing business while also making sure that we're encouraging small business growth. So improve the ease of doing business, to me, is twofold. It's about a mindset shift in government to treat businesses as partners. We're all in this together. Job growth is a good thing. And we need to cut some of the red tape that makes things difficult, while at the same time making sure that, of course, there are safeguards for our city. I think that we also do need to look at the tax structure to make sure that we are competitive. And I think we can do that. We need to lower the wage tax, continue to lower the wage tax. We should look at business tax. I think that we need to look overall at how we attract business. At the same time, I think as mayor, I would emphasize making sure that we're creating job pipelines and workforce training from our most disadvantaged neighborhoods into these good paying jobs. Because we can't have two economies. So as mayor, I would put a lot of priority on workforce development, technical training, creating job pipelines from the poorest neighborhoods into good paying jobs. But I think we're a great city. And if we get the city safer, I think that, and cleaner, I think that will help to encourage business.
Let's talk about the new Shapiro administration, and what would your 3 top priorities be as soon as you became mayor?
Okay, 3 priorities for the state. Top priority is school funding. It has to be school funding. City of Philadelphia, schools don't get nearly enough to educate the kids in Philly. And that would be the top priority. Also, I would want to work with the Shapiro administration on economic development. I know that from the state, we get RACB money for business projects, for development projects, and that's something that I would want to work closely with the Shapiro administration. And then third priority, I think that overall, I would want to establish better relationships between the city and the state. So I would work to improve the relationship with the legislature and the governor's office. Obviously, with Shapiro in there, we have a natural ally. But I also do think that we need to get things through the legislature for Philly. And I would spend a good amount of time to make sure that those relationships are good ones.
Speaking of relationships, talk about working with City Council. What legislation matters to you, and how would you get to, you need 9 votes to, as many of you know, to get legislation passed. How would you get passage of your legislation knowing that there may be a lot of members of City Council who do not agree with you, who have their own agendas? How are you going to build that coalition to get your legislative agenda over the finish line?
So it's interesting. I've worked with City Council for years, since I was City Treasurer, going back to 2008, to Budget Director in 2010, to Chief Administrative Officer in 2016, then City Controller. I've spent a lot of time working with Council. I would start actually by asking them what legislation is important to them. That's how I would start, because I think that to be successful as a mayor, I need a good relationship with council. And so I would start by asking what's important to them, and how that I would use that to how I build out also what I would want to do as mayor. Now, to the question of what legislation is important to me, I believe strongly that we do need a citywide housing policy, and I would want, thank you. I would want to develop that working with City Council. So that is something that I think needs to happen. As mayor, I would make that a priority. And I would also want to talk about tax policy, overarching tax policy, which would require City Council as well.
So where would you focus more of your attention, the neighborhoods or Center City?
We're one city. We are one city. We all depend on each other. Center City depends on the neighborhoods depend on Center City. We need to we need to fix it all. We need to be together. I mean, I would do both. I would focus on the health of the neighborhoods. I mean, my work as city controller showed that there is inequity in how the city provides basic services. For example, trash collection is on time 93% of the time or more in Center City and Northeast Philly, and it's on time 65 to 75% of the time in North, West, and South Philly. That's not right. That's not right. Those are the types of things that I'll fix as mayor. So I will put energy into the neighborhoods that have been long neglected. And these are the same neighborhoods that were redlined due to racist policies for decades and decades. So I believe I have a responsibility and would put a lot of energy into the neighborhoods. And the and then Center City, of course, it's the economic engine. We need a safe, vibrant Center City. It's all interconnected. So that's how I look at it.
I have no more questions, Your Honor.
All right, we will move on to His Honor, Mayor Michael Nutter.
Thanks.
You might want to use your mic, yeah.
Always helps to have the microphone. Just trying to get the water, get the mic. So for the audience, in the ultimate full disclosure and transparency, 16 years ago, I interviewed Rebecca and asked her to join our administration, first as city treasurer, and then 2 years later as budget director. And we worked together during that entire time. So I want folks to know that as a questioner. That'll be about the softest you're gonna get.
Oh my God. Okay.
This is a job interview, so kind of typical initial job questions. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What was your major?
I grew up in Abington, in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Where did I go to school? I went to Abington High School, then went to Middlebury College, lived in Philly for about 3 years in between college and grad school, then went to New York, went to Columbia, got my master's in public administration.
And then you worked on Wall Street?
That's right. Then I worked for about 7 years on Wall Street for Fitch Ratings as a credit analyst, and then I was a managing director at Bear Stearns for several years before I decided that I wanted to use my financial knowledge to help government, and you hired me.
What made you make that decision? Why did you want to be in government? And you obviously relocated. What was that about, the decision-making process?
Yeah. You know, I after grad school for public administration, I focused on finance, and so I got a job, as I said, for a bond rating agency, and then just got deeper and deeper into the financial world in New York. I'm a competitive person, so I thrived on the competition, but didn't feel good every day about what I was doing, in the sense that, for example, for Bear Stearns, I worked in risk. I worked, and I don't want to get too in the weeds, but I worked on interest rate derivatives between Wall Street and cities across the country.
Okay, yeah, we're not going in the weeds.
Okay, but wait, let me finish can I finish? No? Okay.
No, I'm good.
But I didn't say why I left.
I'm a good one. Okay, quickly, why'd you leave? I only got 10 minutes.
Okay, I left because I wanted to help government. I saw over and over again on Wall Street that governments did not know the right questions to ask, governments were taken advantage of, and I didn't feel good doing work every day like that. And I made a decision that I wanted to come back to Philly. I love Philadelphia, to make a difference and to use my knowledge to make government truly work. And I left several weeks before Wall Street collapsed, before Bear Stearns collapsed, but.
Mayor gets to make significant appointments. All the top positions in the government, next tier down, and possibly even the next. Whomever you appoint, if you're the mayor, whomever you appoint as police commissioner, what traits are you looking for? What qualities are you looking for? How do you make that decision? And this is not a question about the current police commissioner, because if you were to keep her, you still have to appoint her. So it's really more about your decision making. What are you looking for in that person? Crime is the #1 issue in the city.
So on the police commissioner role, what I'm looking for is a leader that shares my vision for needed reform, and a leader that can run our police force and get our city safer.
What's the mayor's role in that?
I'm sorry?
What's the mayor's role in that?
Well, the police commissioner works for the mayor.
No, I understand that. What's the mayor's role in public safety? And your vision and
Yeah,
things you want to do
I mean,
with
the
that
mayor
person?
to me is responsible for public safety. There's several different players. There's the mayor, then there's the district attorney, and there's the courts. And so the mayor directs the police, and additionally, the mayor's role is to convene the DA in the courts and to work holistically and together, collaboratively, to make sure that our city is safe, to fix issues as they come up, and to ensure that the system is working properly.
Depending on who you talk to, some folks are anticipating the possibility of a recession. In the meantime, we have a literal alphabet soup of funding. CARES, ARP, IIJA, IRA, all these dollars coming into the city. What are your thoughts, what are your plans for how you use those dollars and anticipate the possibility of a recession at the same time?
So as controller, I put forth a plan for the American Rescue Plan money. The city of Philadelphia received $1.4 billion from the Biden administration in that plan. The current administration has not utilized that, in my view, strategically. So I would use that money, a portion of that money, very strategically to address our biggest problems: gun violence, business growth, especially Black-owned business growth and wealth creation, poverty, and then the school system got their own $1 billion, by the way, in rescue plan money. So whether there's a recession, I mean, if there's a recession or not, that'll go into the financial modeling and the budgeting process. But we need to be strategic with this money that we've received as a city. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make strategic investment in some of these real pressing issues that our city is facing.
Comments have been made from time to time, and we all have our own. Ken talked about style. This is not a style question. It's really more on the personal level. One of the questions that comes up from time to time is Rebecca Rhynhart tough enough? She have the gravitas and the personality. I'm not talking about backslapping and howling and you know, just the cheerleading aspect, but this is a leadership position. And so how do you deal with that kind of question? It goes to the heart and soul of, you know, who you are, how you're going to function, how you're going to operate. And that question comes up from time to time. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it does come up. And what I say is what I'll say now, that of course I'm tough enough. I decided to run for city controller in 2017. I am a Democrat, but I ran against the party. I ran against a long-term incumbent because I believed so strongly that I needed to hold elected office to make change. I had the support of one Democratic ward leader out of 69 ward leaders. I went up against the Democratic Party in Philadelphia and won with 58% of the vote. I mean, do you think that that was easy? Absolutely not. I mean, this is the Democratic machine in Philly, okay? Right? The audience, are you agreeing? I have, as city controller, shown courage to stand up to the status quo when others haven't. I have gotten into a few public fights with the mayor over things, that matter. I led an investigation into what went wrong in the city's response after the murder of George Floyd. I felt it necessary as city controller to get to the bottom of what went wrong when people were tear gassed in 3 different locations, when stores were looted for hours and hours with no response. I used the power of my office.
But how do you
to do
translate
that.
all of that? That's that work.
Okay.
How do you translate all of that to room 215 at City Hall? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does all of that mean doing that job?
So what it means is that not only do I have the experience, but I have the courage to do what's right. I have the courage to lead the city forward. There are solutions to these issues. There are solutions to how we make our city safe while at the same time having criminal justice reform. Both are possible.
You can do both at the same time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It needs courage. It needs leadership.
So you have a district attorney who generally declines to prosecute folks carrying an illegal weapon if they haven't done something else or committed a crime with that illegal weapon. What are you going to do about that?
So as city controller, I worked with DA Krasner. We don't always agree. That's quite, it's quite obvious, just any 2 elected officials. But what I would do is on the issue of illegal guns, and you're absolutely right, the police arrests for illegal carry have increased by more than 100% over the last 5 years, while the conviction rate has declined from about 65% to 42%. What I would do is I would bring the DA together with the courts and the police and ask what the issue is. I mean, I've heard recently the DA say that it's because there's an issue with the police evidence. Okay, if there's an issue with the police evidence, let's all get in the room and figure out, case by case, what's wrong with the evidence, what changes do the police need to make so that there can be prosecution for illegal carry. Because the majority of violence in our city is done with an illegal firearm, and so we do need to crack down on that.
Lightning round, 45 seconds. Greatest accomplishment, greatest disappointment in public service?
Oh, wow. Greatest accomplishment. As city controller, there's not just one. There's not one.
You got to pick one.
I can't pick one.
25 seconds.
I can't pick one. Got the biggest.
Greatest disappointment.
Okay. Oh.
You should have said.
Mayor, I was going to list 3 or 4 greatest accomplishments. Okay. Greatest disappointment. These are hard questions. Greatest disappointment.
Tough job.
Yeah. There's disappointments a lot. What I do with disappointments is I create a list of things that I couldn't accomplish this month or year, with the hope that in a few years, or 1 year or 6 months, that I can try again. So, greatest disappointment today can be accomplished next month.
All right, it's interesting. I'm out of time. Thanks.
All right. Great questions, panel. Let's go to my man, Charles Ellison, for about 8 minutes of public questions from you guys. So this is you being the job interviewer.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Madam Controller Rhynhart. Really appreciate the questions also from the panelists. Okay, here's one question from the audience. I like this one. When you say housing policy, what specifically do you mean?
Great question. So, housing policy means a few things. First, the city owns 8,500 vacant lots and properties throughout the city. That's a lot of property, and as city controller, I had my office map some of those properties and actually drove through some of them in West Philly. There's streets with boarded up houses that the city owns, okay? That's not acceptable. The city needs a policy for what to do, and what we could do is create affordable housing and even do some interesting things with subsidized mortgages, creating black-owned wealth, the black-owned housing. That's part of it. But citywide housing plan is saying we need affordable housing in every neighborhood. We need to make sure that people are not pushed out of their neighborhoods that they've lived in for years and years. We need to protect long-time homeowners, and we also need to protect renters from unjust eviction, while at the same time making sure that we protect mom and pop landlords. So there's a lot that goes into housing policy, but we need to make sure that people can stay in the neighborhoods that have been home to them for decades so that we can create communities and keep communities that thrive.
Thank you for that. Here's another question. You have never had to work with legislators to enact policy, so how would you do that as mayor?
That's interesting. I've worked with legislators a lot on issues and on moving things forward. So I worked with legislators as the budget director and in other jobs. As the city controller, I worked with Councilmember Gautier in West Philly on gun violence initiatives and pushing the mayor to do more. I've worked with city council members on a wide variety of issues, and to me, working on legislation is just a continuation of the work that I've already done with them.
All right. Here's another question from the audience. Can you share an example of a time when you brought together stakeholders from the public, private, and philanthropic, and also I'm thinking that this also means nonprofit sectors, to solve a problem?
Yeah, great question. As city controller, when I did my office's investigation into what happened with the city's response to the civil unrest, I formed a community council. And I formed a community council also when my office did the audit of the police department. My view is we need to bring different views together. And so for the investigation into the civil unrest, I had a group of people that were so diverse in terms of neighborhood, in terms of job, in terms of business, activists, in terms of race, ethnicity. And that group had such different views of what policing should be, of what safety looks like. But we, through that process, and respecting and hearing views, came to one document that everyone agreed on. And to me, that makes it stronger. That's how we get through these issues in our city, is that we are more alike if we respect each other and listen to each other. And I constantly am pulling people together to get different viewpoints.
All right. What do you think the current mayor has done wrong or not done that you would do differently? Be specific, please. These are some great questions, some tough ones. I like these.
722. I think it's leadership. As mayor, I would lead through these issues. On gun violence, I would work every single day and lead to fix these issues. I would show up, I would work hard, I would do everything in my power. I love this city. I love it. And we need to fix it. And that's what I would do differently.
Hey, so people know that you know the data, right? They know you know where the money is, you know how it's spent, but how can you persuade an emotionally frustrated and anxious city that the data is what helps fix a city as broken as this one?
You know, it's not just data. It's heart. It's emotion. It's caring. Fixing the city is about coming together, is about knowing that we're all Philadelphians and we can make our city better. And as mayor, I want to lead through that. And we'll come out of it stronger. We're awesome. We're survivors. We're resilient. We're going to do this.
I think I got about a couple more minutes, right? Here's a good one. We don't ask this enough, or I haven't heard this asked enough out on the campaign trail. Do you have plans to make Philadelphia more accessible to disabled persons? If so, could you share an overview with us? Thanks.
Well, I think that we need to make our city more accessible, and I would be interested in meeting with those involved in this that know much more than I do right now to tell me what needs to change and what we should be doing as a city. So I would look to guidance from people that know more than I do right now about what needs to happen, what legislation, what actions from a mayor, because I believe that we are and must always be an inclusive city, inclusive by race, gender, ethnicity, being disabled. Like, everybody is part of the amazingness of our city, and we need to fix any issues and impediments that make people not comfortable or that it's not accessible to them.
One last question here while I have a minute. Why, as controller, did you not take the opportunity to bring City Council and the administration together? How would you do that now if you were mayor?
Interesting. As city controller, I did work behind the scenes, worked with the DA, with the police commissioner, with city council members on issues. There is a specific role, though, for a mayor to play. The mayor is the CEO. The mayor is the leader. And that's what we need. We need leadership from a mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
You, Charles. Thank you for terrific questions from this audience. I have one final question, Rebecca, which is that I've asked every one of our candidates, which is, if elected, would you commit here and now to coming back here in front of a group like this for an annual performance review?
I'm looking. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all about performance review. Yes.
With that, I want to thank you, thank this panel, and thank you for your public service. Let's take, you guys, those of you who were here the other night, you lagged a little behind on the 3-minute goal for a bathroom break. So let's try and do 3 to 4 minutes and come back here and for the next part of our program with Al and Dom, because we want to get everyone out to see the State of the Union address. All right, see you in a couple minutes.